Hello and welcome to Sam Not So Wise. My name is Sam. It's that time of year, the most exciting time for booktubers, where we look back on the year and do the end of year fun content. Now this is not a top 10, that's coming in 4 or 5 days, not exactly sure. This is a category video. I've got 10 categories of my best and worst throughout the year. This is going to be a mostly positive video because I try and keep my small community as positive as possible. But obviously I know you guys love a little bit of bitching, so there are a couple of negative on there. So I've got 10 categories. Within each of those, I consider which are the most applicable reads. So I'll list those out to you and then I'll choose a winner from those that I list. Obviously, all of these are pretty difficult to decide from. These videos are never easy to make, but it is super fun, so I'm excited to get into it. There are no rereads within this video except for one category. Guess what the category is going to be? But quickly, I just want to tell you about my reading year. So as of now, today, recording this, I've read 49 books. Now, I know that isn't a huge amount compared to other YouTubers, but I'm pretty happy with that. By the time I do my top 10, I'm hoping it'll be 51, probably 50. And that's why I don't know how many days it's going to be until I do that video, because I want to finish that book. Guess what it is? You probably know. I read 23,600 pages. I know page count doesn't really mean anything because different publications, blah, 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 but it's a decent average, and that is just the highest that I've ever read, so pretty good. I read 16 fantasy books, 17 sci-fi books, 4 contemporary books, 3 historical fictions, 3 non-fictions, and 6 rereads. It's been a great year. Maybe not the best year I've ever had, but it has been a great year of some brilliant reads. So let's talk about them. So, with the weather being annoying as it always is in Iceland, and much further ado, let's talk about the best and worst of 2024. So let's start off with something positive and something us SFF readers absolutely love. And that is a series. The best series I've read this year. It could be basically anything. I could have started it and not finished, started and finished last year, this year, whatever. As long as I've read books this year within the series. This was a difficult one to keep a small amount of candidates because I've read so many great series, but here are the candidates. Number 1, Stormlight. This is obviously very hot right now. A humongous series, and I've read everything in this series up to halfway through Wind and Truth, the most recent book. I waited to find out the release date to start this series, so I've read everything this year. It's been a big task. Very much enjoying this series. It is huge, it is epic, it is complicated. It has its flaws, which means that it won't get into my top 5 series ever, but I've really, really enjoyed it so far. I have read and completed this year the Blood Swan trilogy by John Gwynne, one of my favourite authors of all time. A Viking epic fantasy full of heart, but also gore, epic lore, and everything nasty that comes with the Vikings. It is not quite as good as Faithful and the Fallen for me, but I really, really enjoyed this trilogy. I also read The Warlord Chronicles by Bernard Cornwell near the start of the year. I was very impressed by this trilogy. It's a historical fiction based on the retelling of Arthur, the only one I've ever read about Arthur. Apparently it's quite different, but I wouldn't know. But it's a really fun storytelling device in this book. The character work is absolutely brilliant, and it's full of great nasty battles and just wonderful scenes. I really enjoyed this trilogy. I've read and finished this year the Earthseed duology by Octavia E. Butler. This is dystopian, and I love me some dystopian. It is extremely gritty, extremely harsh. It was very, very thoughtful and extremely moving. I really loved this short duology. And finally, we have The Tyrant Philosophers by Adrian Tchaikovsky. These books are really impressing me. I've read the 2 that were released up until the most recent one was released at the start of December. They are very interesting books. quite difficult but really fun stories. The two books are very different from each other, which is also really, really interesting. They are full of magic and whimsy and grit again. So another brilliant series that I'm looking forward to finishing next year. So what is the winner? What is my favorite series of the year? It's gonna be Stormlight. This has been a year of me soaking up all of that Stormlight, and it has been a wild ride. Some big downs, but a lot of big ups, and I'm so excited to see how it finishes. So my series of the year is Stormlight Archive. The next category is gonna be in theme with the series. It's gonna be the best first book in a series that I read. So pretty self-explanatory. Guess what? All of them came from the series that I just mentioned in the previous category, so I'll try and keep it short. So we have three candidates. Number one, obviously, Way of Kings. It takes its time to get going, but it sets up the story really well, and the Sanderlanche is epic. A really good, if maybe slightly too long, first book in a series. Excellent book. The next one will be obviously The Shadow of the Gods. This one really kicks you in the balls straight away, or whatever sexual organs you may have, with its epicness, but also its emotion. It sets up the characters nicely, and I really love the balanced pacing within this book and the whole series, to be honest. And then we have finally The Parable of the Sower, a really tough read, but highly impactful, somewhat prophetic in some senses, and deeply, deeply thematic. Really good first book in the duology. So my winner is gonna be Shadow of the Gods. It was my favorite in this trilogy, and I just thought it was a perfect first book. There is no fat in this book. It is epic. It is moving. Excellent first book. So the next category is my biggest disappointment of the year. I know you people love some controversy, so I should give you some near the start of this probably very long video. So I have three books that let me down this year. The first one is Until the Last, which was book 3 in the Last War trilogy by Mike Shackle. I really enjoyed book 1 in the series. It was grim but exciting, but each book gets worse in the series for me. I know a lot of people love the whole thing, but it's not great for me that the last book in the series was the worst and it was the longest. I just felt like it kind of got way too repetitious in a lot of things, and I just wasn't gripped. I know this is kind of a, as we say in the UK, a Marmite ending of the series. Some people love it, some people don't like it. I fall in the latter category of being disappointed by this series. The second one, I'm going to invite some hate here, was Tress of the Emerald Sea by none other than Brandon Sanderson. I read this with my book club this year that I run here in Reykjavik, and I just found it to be such a mid book. I really don't jive with Sanderson's humour, which is a big problem with this book because it's just full of him trying to be funny. I found the story to be extremely predictable. I just found it extremely meh. Our entire book club, we kind of talked about it for half an hour because there wasn't really much to talk about, and we were just like, that was a book. It's not a bad book, but I just didn't care at all and didn't jive with the humour. Book number 3 is Babel by R.F. Kuang, another one I read in my book club and in which we felt similarly. We were so underwhelmed. It's not a bad book, it was just, and I hear so many people say so many great things about it, but it just wasn't for me. I found the story to be really plodding. I didn't really care about the characters. But the biggest crime for me was all of the themes that she was trying to show us were just so blatant. It was like she was spoon feeding, like, oh, British people were bad, weren't they? So it was just a bit meh. I can understand why people like it, and I can understand why people like all of these books, but they were all a disappointment. So the winner or the loser of the biggest disappointment of the year is going to be Tress. Hate me down in the comments. Let me know why I'm stupid. But for me, it was just a big miss. I understand why people like it, but it just was not for me at all. I am sorry. So category number 4, we all love a series, but we all love a good standalone in between. So this category is my favorite standalone of the year, and I have 3 for you. The first one is The First 15 Lives of Harry August by Claire North. I've talked about this a lot on my channel. It was such a fun book, a brilliant concept written with real panache and flair, lovely writing, a lot of emotion. It was just a really fun but deep book, a great find. The next is going to be A Canticle for Leibowitz, an absolute classic of sci-fi. I love me some apocalypse, and this is one of the classics of apocalyptic fiction. I found it really interesting and inventive in the way it told the story, and it combines really deep thematic and, you know, nasty concepts with a little bit of whimsy, which I found really fun. The next one is going to be, I didn't get the book down, I'm so professional, is The Hydrogen Sonata by Ian M. Banks. My favourite sci-fi series, my favourite author. This was easily going to make it onto the list. And this book takes the concepts of the culture to another level. The ideas are huge, talking about things that we have kind of discussed in the previous books, but making it the main focus of this story. It also really expands the world outside of the culture, which I found to be super interesting, and then having interactions with other communities that are at a similar level to them. It was a fun but complex plot with a lot of intrigue. A really great story. So, what is my winner of favorite standalone of the year? It's The Hydrogen Sonata. I am a Banks fangirl, and it was just fun to see him let loose in his sandbox. You know, he was really going for it in this story. I would maybe not start the series here. It is a series of standalones. You can read it on its own, but more context of the culture would be good. But what a book. The next category is my favorite character that I've read this year, so pretty self-explanatory. So first one is Orca from the Blood Swan saga by John Gwynne. What a character, such a powerhouse, so iconic. It's wonderful to see a middle-aged female mother character in a story, and for her to be just so intriguing. She shows her soft side, and she also shows her badass, hard warrior nature. An amazing iconic character. Another one from the same series was Varg. So 2 from the same series, that tells you how good it is. I just found Varg's growth throughout the trilogy to be truly brilliant and just engaging. I love how he's not a man in a high position of power, but he's still really important to the story. And I just want to be his friend. He seems like such a cool dude and amazing to have in a scrap with you if you ever get in one. The next one is Wit from Stormlight Archive. Whilst I'm not a fan of Sanderson's humour, I actually like Wit's humour. He's the funniest to me because he plays with words, and I love wordplay. But the main reason I love him is I just love the mystery behind him and how he secretly pulls all of the strings, well, not all of them. He pulls a lot of strings within the Stormlight Archive. I just find him to be really intriguing and full of depth that we probably will never fully explore, which is just interesting to me. Finally, we have Derval from the Warlord Chronicles. So I love that the story is actually told from his perspective, not Arthur's, the supposedly main guy of the story. He's a person that is not immediately obvious to be a main character, but he has such brilliant growth over the trilogy. He's loyal, he's fierce, he's loving, he's deviously smart. He's someone you want on your side, and again, you want to be his friend. So who wins my favorite character of the year? It is in fact Derval. He may be somewhat of an unreliable narrator, which I also really enjoy, but you just learn to love him and you just end up believing him and wanting to be on his side. Even though there are 2 sides, you just believe Derval. The growth is just superb. and it's really clever writing by Cornwell. So, Derval. The next category is bringing us back to some lovely negativity, and it is the worst character I've read this year. So again, self-explanatory, and I've got 5 to tell you for this one. So first we have Guthvar from the Blood Swan Saga. So he's not really a bad character or badly written, I don't think. Although he's probably one of the least subtle characters I've ever read by John Gwynne, but really, I just hate him for what he represents. This cowardly, selfish piece of shit, basically. He's just a nasty little weasel, and I hate him. The next one, again, I'm going to invite some hate, but it's Shallan from Stormlight Archive. It has nothing to do with her having this split personality. I just don't like any of the 3 personalities she has. I just find her so irritating. I hate the recurrence of her having hidden memories, and her humour is truly awful. I just never really excited when she's on the page. I know she gets a lot of hate, and unfortunately, I'm in the camp of not liking her. Next one is Lancelot from the Warlord Chronicles. Again, this is not due to bad writing, it's actually due to brilliant writing. He is just one of the biggest arseholes ever to be written in fiction. He's a truly hateable character, and it's done in an interesting way because usually he's seen as such a chivalrous man, but again, you just hate him so much. So again, yeah. Anyway, next, Kizzy from The Long Way to a Small Angry Planet. So she is supposed to be this cutesy, funny, adorable girl mechanic. But I just found her to be immensely irritating and just kind of unbelievable. I didn't really believe anybody could really be this kind of person. She's so over the top and she just did not work for me at all. Again, I just hated it when she was on the page. I know probably a lot of people love her, but I just, not for me, too cutesy. Finally, we have Leto the Second from a couple of the Dune books, but specifically from God Emperor. I know he's not really meant to be likable, but he just loves the smell of his own farts. He loves himself so much. If I had to hear him say, "You'll find out later," one more time, I may have thrown the book across the room. It was just so irritating. He loved that. Yeah, hated him so much. But there has to be a loser or a winner of this category, and unfortunately for my comments, it's going to be Shallan. I'm sorry, I love Stormlight, but I would definitely like to see Shallan portrayed differently. She just irritates me. Sorry. The next category is the best authors new to me. So it was kind of harder to find the choices within this category because I haven't read too many new authors or none that have particularly impressed me, but I have 3 for you that do work. One is Claire North, the writer of the first 15 Lives of Harry August, which I've already talked about. I just absolutely loved this book. The writing was beautiful, it was a thoughtful book, and the idea and the story were really interesting. So great, I'm very much excited to read more from her. The next was Bernard Cornwell. I'd never read any of his writing. You can tell what a brilliant writer he is. It's a fascinating trilogy that I read, and it's a great blend of character work and historical intrigue and a lot of action. Really impressed by that series. Derval is just so good. The final one would be Walter Miller from Canticle for Leibowitz, which was just an excellent book. The writing was well done with great variety between the 3 kind of novellas that the story is basically made from. It's just a shame he didn't write much more than that. So, who is my favourite author new to me? It is going to be Claire North. I was just so impressed by the first 15 Lives of Harry August. It was an absolute romp, but also really thoughtful, and just the writing was lovely. I'm really excited to read more from her. This is such a great book. Claire North is my favourite new author to me. So the next category is the most emotional read of the year. I am all in it for the feels, the whole spectrum of emotions. If you make me feel deeply within your book, I will love and remember it for a really long time. So the candidates for this category are The Fury of the Gods by John Gwynne. Now, John Gwynne is basically a cheat code for emotions. His stories are all about family, found family and relationships, and this book concludes all of those themes that have been building up within the trilogy, as well as those of othering, and there are just some amazing scenes that hit hard, and it's just a really, really powerful ending to this trilogy. The next one is The Parable of the Talents, the second book in the Earthseed duology. Now, this is a difficult book full of truly nasty scenery that really just hits hard and makes you really sad, mostly. But it's also got a lot of hope in it and feelings of love and connection through relationships and the community that is built within this story. So it's a really emotions going at loggerheads with each other within this, and it's just such a roller coaster. The final one is Excalibur, the third book in the Warlord Chronicles trilogy. And through Devil's eyes, you can't help but feel the roller coaster of emotions again within this ending of the series. He is a man full of feelings and you're getting his story, so you can't help but just really feel the love, the loss, the hate, the glory of battle. Everything just comes to a big head and it's just full of heart. And you love Derval and all of the wonderful characters around him. So what is the winner? It is going to be The Fury of the Gods. It's John Gwynne. You can't help but feel things. You're going to lose people. You're going to find vengeance. You're going to make great relationships. And you're going to find love. And you're going to explore lots of deep themes. This is a book that made me feel all the spectrum in a very strong way. And it was a brilliant ending to the series. So the penultimate category is my best reread of the year. I actually really like a reread. I find you get so much more from it the second time round, and I try to read around 1 in 10 books as a reread. And it's actually been more than that this year. So it's been a very rewarding experience. The first one I'm going to talk about is The City of Last Chances by Adrian Tchaikovsky. I read this last year in the summer and I remember really liking it, but my book club chose it, so I was happy to read it again. And this time round, I just understood so much more and saw more of the intricacies of the twisty-turny plot. It really does benefit from a reread, and I would highly recommend you do so if you've read it before. Another one that my book club chose that I'd already read before was The Left Hand of Darkness by Ursula K. Le Guin, and this really let me explore just how subtle Le Guin's writing was, both in just in its beauty but also its thematic explorations. I got a lot more from it this time, and it's just a wonderful short book full of heart and deep thinking. Brilliant stuff. Now the final one on this list is Use of Weapons by Ian M. Banks. I remember this just being one of my favourite books of all time in my favourite sci-fi series by my favourite author. And I reread this in a buddy read with Bart from Bart's Bookspace and Whitney from Secret Source of Storycraft. And interestingly, I was more divided on the ending this time. I remember it absolutely blowing my brains out last time, but I was, through the discussion we had, we were able to question it more, and I was left questioning whether I liked it as much this time, which was a really interesting experience. But this book is still amazing, and I was able to pick up so much more foreshadowing within the book and just smaller details. So that was a really interesting reread for me. So what wins this category? Well, it's Use of Weapons, of course it is. It's a cheat code having an Ian Banks book, because he is just amazing to me. The buddy read also really helped elevate this experience of, rereading the book. So that also helps it win this category. I have different feelings on it, but it's still amazing and the experience was truly wonderful. So the final category is the biggest surprise of the year. Now this is a varied category. I just wanted to have a little bit of fun with it. So the first one is Fourth Wing. Ta-da! See, you are surprised that I read this book. I didn't choose it. This was another book club read. So it's just a surprise that I read it, because romantasy is not for me. I don't have anything against it or people who read it. It's just not something I'm interested in. And no surprise, I didn't enjoy it at all. So yes, surprised that I read this book. The next one is The First 15 Lives of Harry August. I don't need to say much more because I've already spoken about it, but I was just not expecting to like this book this much. I was really impressed, a massive surprise. The next one is, it's The House of Open Wounds, but I've just realised that I probably held this up for the last category. Professional as always, Sam. Well done. This is why I'm called Sam Not So Wise. Anyway, this was just a surprising book because it was so different from book one. It is a series, but they may as well be standalones. There's very little connecting them. It was just completely different in terms of its storytelling and what it was exploring and its vibes, but it was just as good. A really good, nice surprise. Finally is YouTube in general. Obviously not a book, but I'm just kind of slightly surprised. I started the channel because I've been umming and ahhing about it for so long, and the journey has been surprising. I didn't know if I'd have the guts to do it, but you know, I've had such great support, such great engagement. I've had 2 brilliant discussions, which is what I'm all about. I chatted to one of my favorite authors of all time. I didn't expect to have this many subs after just over 3 months. Like that was like my year end, like a year goal, to have 500 after a year. So to have over that after 3 months is just insane. So what a big surprise, and thank you to anyone who has subscribed. So what is the winner of my biggest surprise? Well, no surprises. It is The First 15 Lives of Harry August. What a wonderful book to find this year. And I'm so happy I did. The biggest surprise of the year. We've finally made it to the end of another long video. As I always say, if you've made it this far, thank you so much for watching. I'm very, very grateful. It has been a good year, a fun year, and it's been really fun to talk about it today. Again, not maybe my favorite year of reading, but I found some really excellent reads. And I'm very excited about what I'm going to be reading next year. If you didn't catch my TBR video for 2025, I'll put it in the description. Go over there, have a look, and let me know what you think. My next video will be my top 10 for the year of 2024. So that's very exciting. Keep your eyes out for that. If you're new here, think about subscribing. No offense if you don't. Anybody who's watched, please think about liking the video. But what I really want is some comments, some feedback. I want to hear your answers to these categories and your feelings about my answers. Let me know all of the hate for my negative Sanderson comments, but also the love for the positive Sanderson comments. Obviously, I really love the engagement, so keep it up, you wonderful people. That is it for this video. Thank you again for watching, and I'll see you soon for that top 10. Goodbye.